Happy Thursday. Hi, welcome. Welcome, hello. I am talking about some carbs today. Carbs, the dirtiest word in the fitness and health industry. Carbs. It seems as though they are the enemy number one when you're trying to get healthy. I talked a lot about carbs growing up because I was in cross country in high school. So I always had it in my head that there were obviously there was a need for carbs. Like runners are runners a lot of times because they want to be able to eat unlimited amounts of carbs. And I get it because they're delicious. So I don't follow or do anything that would be considered, but I guess what everyone calls keto. That is a limited amount of carbs, but it's still, I think, still very limiting in the fact that I like to make sure that I'm going to properly fuel my body and not run out of energy. I've had situations where I've hit that wall of not having enough of the energy to finish whatever I need to do, like a run or something like that, and it sucks. So carbohydrates, really, in many ways, we need to think of them as just another fuel source. It's kind of like adding maybe a little bit of fuel booster to your tank when you're trying to, get your vehicle maintenance, blah, blah, blah. I got my oil changed yesterday, so I'm still thinking about vehicle maintenance. So my three laziest yellows that I particularly eat regularly, I'm going to start with the very first one being sweet potatoes. Now, I usually eat like one sweet potato or a part of a sweet potato a day because I love them in a very specific salad. I'm going to talk more about that salad tomorrow. But sweet potatoes, the reason why I love these as a lazy meal prep is like right now I've got a couple really big ones in the oven. I roast them whole, just poking a few holes in them. And then once I'm done with roasting them and they've cooled, I take the skin off, and then I actually, just like with bananas, I put them on a cookie sheet and I freeze them. And I do usually also portion them out. Like this is a piece of some frozen roasted sweet potato. And I can even, because they're soft when you roast them, you can put them into your yellow container and measure them out, put them on the cookie sheet, and then you know that you're close. I eyeball these because I'm lazy and I don't want to put them into this thing, but I've done that before. So frozen roasted sweet potatoes, I usually just take them right out of the freezer and let them thaw in my salads that I make. Or if I'm going to eat, like, for example, if I was going to have this for lunch, I just put it in the microwave for a little bit just so that it kind of thaws out a little bit. But it's already cooked, so I don't have to do anything extra with that. I also, when I'm feeling not particularly lazy, I will cube these, peel them, cube them, and usually roast or air fry them with a little bit of cinnamon, salt, and pepper on them. Oh, those are really easy to measure into these containers, and they're really good. It's just not the laziest way to do it. And this group was all about lazy meal prep, so there you go. If you don't want to be lazy, sometimes you get a little bit more flavor, but lazy's fine too. All right, so sweet potatoes, I eat a lot of these. I usually have these on my grocery list every single week. I've got a whole bunch right now in this bag that I repurposed. It's like a Target bag. I just didn't want them to sit in plastic bags and kind of they smelled like a dank basement. So, okay, second lazy yellow container that I really like is quinoa, mainly just because this is so freaking easy to cook. And you can add any flavor profile that you want. So you can add spices, you can do vegetable broth, chicken broth, beef broth. If you're into any of those types of broths, you can season this up with like curry. You can add vegetables to this. Like I've had like a lovely quinoa salad with some Kalamata olives and some like diced cucumber and stuff. So quinoa actually stretches pretty far once you cook it. It does definitely gain some bulk when you put it in water and gets those little tails. And plus, it's super easy to cook in the Instant Pot. Like, it's super easy, super fast. And then you can batch cook this and then batch prep what you're going to eat with it. So you can make a big batch of this and then hold on to it and then make something with it either later in the week or just portioning it out and then serving it with something else. So quinoa is number 2. This is just Walmart organic white quinoa. Sometimes you can get mixes with different colors, and I mean, it's always very earthy, so it's really good. And even a stew, this is really great in a stew. I've used this in place of barley in a beef vegetable stew. Okay, so far, sweet potatoes and quinoa. And drop a comment if you are on the live right now. I see a few people have been watching. My last lazy yellow that I want to talk about today, actually I'm going to give you a bonus one because I've got one down at my feet that I wasn't going to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it. So beans, the magical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. The more you toot, the better you feel. Let's have beans for every meal. Actually, Megan, she had told me that I had seen in her Instagram stories last week that she was following somebody who was talking about beans and how good they are for you. Now, there is actually a lot of science behind how beans are really super good for you. They're filled with fiber. They have a lot of micronutrients that you aren't getting from other places. So I just wanted to share with you a couple different kinds of beans, that especially one that I've just recently been introduced to, and talk about kind of what you can do with them. So this bag that I was holding up is cranberry beans. So I talked about Milk Street earlier this week when it came to the broccoli, that broccoli recipe where you char it in your cast iron skillet. So they do this, they had this recipe for Mexican beans, and I was like, well, I want to make that. I want to try it. And it called for cranberry beans, and I was like, I've never heard of these before. They gave some good information about how they're different from pinto beans, just that they're a little bit more firm and creamy in texture. So I was like, okay, well, I'll see if they've got them at Walmart. They totally had them at Walmart, so I grabbed a couple bags. This was one that I had to do a soak. I soaked them overnight. I've never soaked beans before in my life. The reason why I've never really wanted to, and this is crazy, Steel Magnolias, when she talks about how she wanted something that freezes beautifully, because it was in her in the freezes beautifully section of her cookbook, but she didn't have enough time to soak her beans overnight. Anyways, that's tangent city right there. So cranberry beans, I made this last weekend into these Mexican beans. They were great. I mean, I would almost honestly say that they're very similar, in my opinion, to a kidney bean, but they're just really mild. They definitely had a pinto bean kind of mildness and flavor. So Mexican beans with these cranberry beans, it was super easy to make. Cilantro stems and onion is your base for cooking your beans. And then just like a broth, I used pork broth that I made. Okay. Then I have this big bag of black beans. So I like to do kind of a mix of, I like to have dried beans on hand. I don't cook with them very often, but having an Instant Pot changes the game when it comes to being able to do things with beans without having to soak them first. So I got these, and I'm actually thinking about making something like a black bean soup for dinner tonight, or it's either that or homemade pizza. So we'll see. I've actually been like making dinner, helping facilitate a dinner every single night, not eating out this week, doing very well. Thank you. So I usually have canned black beans, but I had just managed to put this on my grocery list so that I have them on hand, and then I can make these into like a black bean soup. I also have some canned beans. So really, like, the whole thing about having a variety of different beans in your pantry just gives you some different options. So there's times where having ready-made beans is super convenient, because then you're just going to be able to throw them into what you're going to throw them into. Sometimes if I don't have the time to prep up some of these sweet potatoes, it's nice just to be able to portion out a container of garbanzo beans and season those up myself and add them to a salad and know that I'm still eating something that's pretty high up on the list of the better yellows on the yellow list. So the bonus yellow that I wanted to talk about today, it's so heavy. It's rice. This is basmati rice. So funny story, we got a gigantic bag just like this one right at the beginning of the Rona epidemic, and when everybody was selling out, like, all the beans were gone, all the rice was gone, everything was off the shelves. We went to Walmart one day and they only had like one bag of this rice left. So my husband was like, I was like, I know this sounds crazy, but I think we should get that bag of rice. And he's like, fine, because it's like $20 for this gigantic 25-pound bag, I think, of rice. So we've been making this basmati rice. I would honestly, it's not on the list of yellows for portion fix, but I'm gonna say I would treat it just like I would any other yellow and just make sure that I'm eating it within kind of the portion system. But this basmati rice cooks up beautifully in the Instant Pot. We use it for all kinds of different rice dishes. So whether it's Asian food or Thad's been making like his own rice pudding. Oh, and he even made some of this into some rice waffles one day, which were mwah, magnifique. I love that when he gets kind of adventurous in the kitchen, it always leads to something that typically we're always really surprised, and we love. I just love that when he actually like volunteers to make things. Lacey said, I get a big bag like that of quinoa. We love quinoa, which of course it's very similar to the ability to be versatile like rice. But I will also say, if you're kind of looking at doing a plant-based diet, this quinoa and beans are actually like the foundations of a lot of people that go plant-based, as both not just like carbohydrates, but also a form of protein. So quinoa, like I was looking at this, quinoa it has 29 grams of carbohydrates per serving, and then 6 grams of protein, which I feel like for a 1/4 cup dry, which will probably be maybe about a cup or so cooked, is pretty good. And then with garbanzo beans, like this also is 6 grams of protein per serving. So, you know, that's the cool thing about beans and quinoa, is that you are getting like double the pleasure, double the fun in the form of protein and carbohydrates. So, my particular meal plan that I follow is the Portion Fix. That is available through every Beachbody program in Beachbody On Demand. Every program has a nutrition plan that kind of outlines if you should be eating more containers or less containers based on if you're trying to lose weight, maintain weight, bulk up. I've actually been looking at some recipe swaps and thinking about adding a little bit more protein to see if I can add a little bit more muscle mass onto this little strapping frame of mine. So it's interesting when your goals change and shift away from primarily only losing weight to being able to say, okay, now is time to really start putting some real meat on these bones and see what I can do in that realm. So that's kind of an exciting change. Anyways, I'm going to let you all go. Thank you for sticking around. I will have a recap up of all of my lazy yellows and my cooking techniques later on this afternoon, and I will put up another participation post. Tomorrow we're putting it all together, y'all. It's going to be me tying all of these things I've talked about all week into 3 meal prep situations that I think will be hopefully helpful, enlightening, motivating, inspiring, all of the above. So hope you all have a great Thursday. Bye.